and welcome to the Hoosier Enquirer show with your host Gabe Whitley and co-host Johannes. Johannes, today was an eventful today. We had the Indy 500. We have Memorial Day coming up tomorrow. What are your plans going on for tomorrow for Memorial Day?
Some beef chuck roast and spices. I have a jar of harissa that I just things, so I should have everything I need to be to make sure. Um, Maybe do an Instacart run, and that's about it.
Okay, nothing special then. I'm assuming.
Not really. It's gonna take me 3 days to make the merguez because I have to cut the meat up, and then I have to make the spice mix with the harissa and mix that up with the meat chunks before I grind it. Let it sit in the fridge overnight, and then Tuesday I'll have to grind it. And then Wednesday night, I'll just stuff it in the casings. And since Wednesday I can't have meat, um, I'll throw some of the merguez on the grill on Thursday and freeze the rest, vacuum seal and freeze the rest. And I'd
Okay.
like to make all beef hot dogs before the Apostle Fast begins. Because a week
Yeah,
from
I think I might head to the store tomorrow and buy some steaks and cook them tomorrow. That'll be nice.
yeah,
So I guess next Memorial Weekend, next year, Hoosiers will not be able to buy. If you're on food stamps, you won't be able to buy sugary snacks and pop. So you might as well buy it while you can this year, because starting June 1st of 2026, Hoosiers will not be able to buy no pop, no candy, and no snacks. It's all of the initiative program that RFK Jr. and Trump and the Braun administration want to implement, making Indiana a healthier place. What do you think about that, Johannes? Do you think we should, you know, Indiana should take away pop and sugary snacks from Hoosiers, or you think they should, decide what we should let
I think they should take away the diet pop and all the high fructose corn syrup. I think they should be allowed to get like stuff like Mexican Cokes or Jarritos, which has the real cane sugar in it, because that's actually natural sugar, which is actually healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm on the go or I'm traveling somewhere and there's nothing else, I'll take a regular Coke when I take my pills. But at home, I use the shop app and I order Nataktari lemonade, which is imported out of Georgia, out of the country, Georgia. And it's not really lemonade, they just call it that. But it's the Saperavi grape is a variety of grape. Yeah, Kakheti region of Georgia. It's a very common grape used in a variety of wines, like Saperavi wine, which is a dark red wine. Georgians call it black wine or Shavivino. Um, and Nataktari also comes in the tarragon flavor. Uh, Pear flavor is also good. And I never thought I could get this flavor in the U.S. I never saw it before. But the store I buy the Nataktari from finally they have barberries, which is a very unique flavor. And I had that barberries Nataktari in Georgia a few times, and it's very good.
Okay. Okay.
It's almost like a sweet candy-like flavor. And the barberry is a small berry. You have barberries in America, but they're not the edible barberries. They're just like decorative landscaping plants. They're on tiny little bushes that have thorns on them. Georgian barberries are bright red. They grow all over the Caucasus, the Middle East, and Central Asia. A lot of Central Asian countries like Uzbekistan even have black barberries, which they use in their gula kebabs. Very good. But that's what I drink usually when I take my pills. Otherwise, I drink mainly water. In the morning, I'll drink a fruit punch or a tropical fruit punch nectar juice that I get at Aldi.
Oh, Johannes, did you hear that Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty passed away today?
No,
Yeah, he passed away today. Rest in peace, Phil. He was a great patriot to the cause, and he was just
didn't
an
he
angel
design
all
that
around.
sneaker that had that metal spring in it?
Say that again.
Didn't he design that sneaker that had that metal spring in it
That's a very good question. I don't know. I
under
don't
the
know the
heel
answer
of the
to that.
foot?
Then say that again.
Under the heel of the foot. I know he was marketing a type of shoe that had that spring in it.
I don't know.
That's
That's
what he got
something that I'll have
famous
to look
for.
into. Then that's something I'll have to look into. Then 'cause I don't remember that. But maybe he did. Who knows? But yeah, he
What I
passed away
like
today.
about him, what I like about him was that he was bashing gays on his show on A&E. A&E was going to cancel him, and he told A&E, "Don't you dare!" And he raised enough hell. They decided that they weren't going to cancel him.
Well,
I
that's
really
good. Some
respect him
people
for
need to
that.
raise hell. That's how it needs to be. Because a lot of these companies are woke. They're just woke, and I'll quote somebody that a lot of people hate about wokeness is what this smart individual said. Everything that turns woke turns to shit.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's really true. It's very true.
Well, the Georgian government um, started with the mayor of Tbilisi, and then it was reiterated by Shalva Papuashvili, who's the Speaker of the Parliament, and Irakli Kobachidze, who's Georgia's Prime Minister. They don't call it woke. They call it by what it is, liberal fascism.
Well, it is liberal fascism.
But it's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. I mean, you look at how how do they do it? They do these color revolutions, okay, which New Hampshire Senator Jean Shaheen was heavily involved in that.
Well, Gene Shaheen's gone now. Thank goodness.
Oh, did she finally resign?
Well, remember she's not seeking re-election.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I
her
think
seat's
she's still in the
vulnerable
Senate,
anyways.
though.
Her seat's vulnerable anyways. So
Well, I think she decided to step down when Trump cut the funding of USAID.
well, yeah.
That's the best.
Well, yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
best thing Trump did was cut USAID.
USAID needed to be defunded. Well,
It had to be.
and there's a lot of organizations that also need to be the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, a lot of these
The
other alphabet,
IRS.
the IRS, a lot of these alphabet agencies with the feds need to be abolished. I don't care. They just we're wasting too much money on too much stuff, and tariffs should pay for everything. Now I know Rand Paul is facing
Well,
some.
that's how it used to be back in the day.
Oh, I know, and we were thriving. We were thriving, and then Congress wanted to pass, that bill that taxed our income checks, checks, and then one thing led to another. They said it's only temporary, and whenever the government gets involved, nothing's temporary. You don't trust the government. The government spends our money like an unlimited credit card and then foots the bill to another person. That's unfair and
Yeah,
truly un-American.
yeah.
That's like sort of like
Well,
similar to identity theft.
USAID was the primary funder for uh, getting these NGOs like the McCain Institute and all the Soros funded organizations like the Democracy Project, the Freedom Project, and there are a few others who were responsible in getting all these groups to overthrow regimes the globalists didn't like using the color revolution method. And we actually had a color revolution here in the United States back in 2020.
Yeah, I remember that. Our stupid mayor Joe Hogsett decided to get drunk while everybody was rioting out in the streets. Dumbass Joe
Yeah,
Hogsett.
well, this you look at the you look at everything the way the Summer of Rage, you know, they had they had a person who they built up as the hero, and that was George Floyd. Okay, and George Floyd was the victim they needed, even though he was not a victim. He was a horrible criminal if you look at his record, but he was the quote hero unquote. And so they had that, and then they had the villain, which the police was used as the villain. And granted, there are plenty of corrupt cops. I was just a victim of one a couple months ago. But when they created the defund the police movement, and they have these violent youth groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter, this is all done by design. This is all done by design. This is the exact same playbook that was used to foment the Rose Revolution in Georgia in 2003, the Orange Revolution in Ukraine in 2004, and the Maidan Revolution in Ukraine in 2014. And we all know what the Maidan Revolution led to, which Trump is trying to put that fire out finally.
Yeah,
But
it's something that needs to be stopped. These colorful revolutions are, they're not only designed for Europe, they're designed for everywhere and different. At the end of the day,
well, yeah,
it's
you
a
had the
colorful
Arab Spring
revolution, and it's there to disrupt, cause chaos, and interfere
and
in
overthrow
elections.
governments in the end. That's what they're designed to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they're designed to do. They have nothing else
Now,
better to do but cause havoc and riots and distress towards the American people.
what was the defund the police movement designed to do? I'll tell you exactly what was designed to do. Okay, they, you know, uh, George Floyd resisted arrest. He was on drugs. Okay, the police needed to use force to subdue him. Okay, and they were well within their realms to do that. So, what they used the defund the police movement for was to use an issue that they knew would get every American riled up, and that is racism. Okay,
Yeah.
so they used that as an so that then they get these groups, like they were called Antifa or Black Lives Matter. And I think they were two wings of the same group. So what they do is they basically pay young college kids to go out and make these demonstrations. Usually it's college kids or kids that want money to smoke pot or whatever. And they'll tell them, hey, you want to make $100? Okay, you get on this bus. We're going to go to this city. And or we're going to go to DC, or we're going to go to this state capital. And when we get there, We're going to tell you exactly what to say and exactly what to do, and you're going to get a couple $100. Sometimes it could be a couple $1,000. It depends on what kind of chaos they want to cause. This is how they do it. This is not just how they did it with the Summer of Rage here in 2020. They did this in Georgia. They did this in Ukraine. They did this with the Tulip Revolution in Kyrgyzstan in 2005. They did this with the Twitter revolution in Moldova in 2008. They did this with the Arab Spring in 2010. Uh, and basically, they started this experiment in Serbia, is where it started. Because Serbia is a huge problem for the globalists. The globalists, they hate Serbia and they hate Russia.
Yeah, they do.
And I'll tell you why. Those two, there are three countries that are very strong, traditional Christian countries that have the means to protect their culture, and the people are strong enough to stand up to any kind of outside force. That is Russia, Belarus, and Serbia. They tried this in Belarus in 2020 as well, and Lukashenko put the kibosh to it. But see, the Serbs are going to fight. The Serbs are natural born fighters. And they're that good Slavic Orthodox stock, Orthodox Christian stock. And basically, in 1999, Bill Clinton bombed Kosovo, bombed Serbia over Kosovo as a disguise to hide his affair that he had with Monica Lewinsky. And this was actually portrayed about a year and a half before the Kosovo War started in the movie Wag the Dog. Have you ever seen the movie Wag the Dog?
No, I have not.
Okay, Wag the Dog, I think, came out in 1997 or 1998. And the Kosovo War started in 1999. Wag the Dog was about this U.S. president who 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 had a very immoral sexual affair with his secretary at the White House, and it was around right just before an election, and everybody was focusing on all the dirty sex he had with this. I mean, it was like very dirty sex. I mean, S&M and all that kind of stuff going on, and all that. So, in order to drive attention away, he hired a Hollywood producer to create a fake war in Albania.
Okay.
That's the whole scenario of the movie Wag the Dog. Okay? And who were the victims causing Clinton to go bomb Serbia in 1999? The Shiptars.
Okay.
The Shiptars are Kosovo Albanians.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So when Wag the Dog came out, I think that was designed to be predictive programming. See, globalists love to tell you what they're going to do, and they do it in the form of film and literature. They've always done that. All the science fiction films are about stuff like that. In fact, George Orwell, who wrote Animal Farm and 1984, he was actually part of the MI6. And
Yeah,
there's different stories.
isn't the MI6 still active?
Yes,
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought.
yeah, they're all They're all the
What was
intelligence
involved?
agencies of the Five Eyes country: the CIA, the MI6, the Mossad, the Pakistani ISI, and several others.
Well,
Um,
wasn't Putin involved in like in the MI6?
no, he was KGB.
Oh, that's what it was. KGB. Yeah. KGB. Yeah. Yep.
MI6 and MI5 are British intelligence.
Yep. That sounds right. I don't know why I got that
And
mixed up.
and they're active not only in the UK, they're active in all the Commonwealth countries. So that means they're active in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand, um, Jersey, not New Jersey, but Jersey Island, um, and all the other countries that are part of the British Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, you know, they're called the Five Eyes countries because they share each other's intelligence. So all the British Commonwealth countries are Five Eyes countries. The U.S. is a Five Eyes country. The United Kingdom, Israel, the European Union, especially the countries of the European Union that are in the Schengen zone. I don't know if you're familiar with the Schengen zone. For those
No,
who
I'm
don't
not
know,
familiar with that.
the Schengen zone are the European countries that have done away with their borders. So any country in the Schengen zone can travel to any other country in the Schengen zone, and all the Schengen countries are on the euro.
Okay.
Believe it or not, there's still some countries within the European Union that still have their own currency. Those countries are not in the Schengen zone. Like Denmark still have their kroner. Um, uh, Poland still has the zloty, and there are a couple other countries that still have their currency. Other than that, all the other countries in the European Union are in the Schengen zone, and including the Baltic states. Lithuania, they don't have their currency, the litas, anymore. They went to the euro. I remember when I was in Lithuania in 1996, it was 4 litas to the dollar. That used to be like when Lithuania broke away from the Soviet Union, they started their own currency called the litas. But now they joined the EU and they wanted to be in the Schengen zone, so they had to they had to drop the litas to get in the euro. So basically, those countries lost their sovereignty. Because the first thing you lose when you lose your sovereignty is your national currency.
Yeah, it's usually how it goes. Sometimes some countries are able to keep their country, but they always lose their value of the dollar, their currency. Look at the Middle East, for example. They're always fighting over the dumbest stuff.
Yeah, but the Middle East is the way it is because of the MI6. And a great movie that a very old movie that shows you how the British MI6 manipulated the Middle East is Lawrence of Arabia.
Really?
Yeah, Lawrence of Arabia is like the House of Saud, which is the royal family of Saudi Arabia. That was a creation of the Middle East. I mean, that was the creation of the MI6 because Saudi Arabia, Yemen, those countries, they were all different individual emirates, and Saudi Arabia, as we know it, used to be a whole bunch of nomadic Bedouin tribes.
Huh.
The Saudi king was a creation of MI6 to get a hold of the oil fields.
that's very interesting. Speaking of oil fields, I know Trump is trying to bring back more of the oil rigs and more of the oil companies here in the U.S. What's your thoughts about that, Johannes?
Yeah, he needs to do that. He needs to do that.
I know Biden revoked and went back on quite a bit of leases, oil rig leases, including land leases for the oil rigs to prevent them
Yeah,
drilling oil. So,
yeah.
yeah, we need to bring those back for sure. We definitely need to bring those back. It creates more jobs, more revenue, more
And it brings the
rigs
gas
for the
prices
United
down.
States. Say that again, Johannes.
Brings gas prices down.
Yeah, these gas prices I'm not too happy about. They're still pretty high.
Yeah, but you can't what Biden destroyed. You can't redo that overnight. You have to start drilling those rigs again. There's a lot of work involved in that.
Yeah, I know Trump had talked
So it's going
about.
to take some time.
Yeah, I know, but I remember Trump talked about, on the first day he's presidency, he's gonna. What was the words he said? He said, "I'm gonna bring the oil prices down just like that when I'm president." I remember him saying that. He was caught on the campaign
Well,
trail saying about
he
that.
had
So
to address the average Joe six pack who just watches sports and Netflix all day, and they don't understand how things work.
fair point. Fair point.
I mean, just like when like back to the color revolutions and back to the defund the police movement. What was another thing we saw happen in the summer of rage? They started bombing police stations. Remember that?
I remember they bombed a fertility clinic in California just recently, and they shot up a Israel assembly, no embassy.
The Israeli embassy. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that was a false flag, and that's what Alex Jones is thinking.
it might be. Who
Because
knows? Who knows?
yeah, Netanyahu really wants an excuse to attack Iran, and
Yeah,
I don't
and
want that to happen because that would start World War III, and that'll be a nuclear war, and we don't need that.
well, and I thought was very interesting. Even Trump, who's pro-Israel, was telling Netanyahu that you guys need to stop the war or we're out. And I really like that because we should not be, I'm all for any country, including Israel, whoever, to defend their country. But when all you're talking about is war and constantly bombing people, and just and you're
Yeah,
using our tax dollars, yeah, no, I'm good. For a while I was okay with it, but I think over time, after over a year, you sort of question everything, and then when you
and
questioned it, then the neocons start attacking you, and the stuff starts making sense. When I
and you
look
look
at
at
this
you
war,
look at
it's
what they're doing in Gaza. Okay, all right, Hamas is a terrorist organization.
yes,
So
that's
is Hezbollah. I get it.
not all the
But
Palestinians are terrorists, but yes, I've come to I've
and
done my
you've got
research on that.
Christians in that area too,
Yeah,
and they're
exactly.
getting attacked. They're getting attacked from both sides.
Yeah,
They're getting attacked by the Israelis because they're Palestinian or Lebanese, and they're getting attacked by the Palestinians because they're not Muslims.
yeah, exactly.
90% of those Christians are Orthodox.
Yeah, and we're using our tax dollars' money to fund both sides of the war. Yeah, I think
And, as an
yes,
Orthodox Christian myself, I find it very offensive. Nobody talks about the Christians being bombed, especially Christians being bombed in an area that 90% of those Christians are the same Christian denomination that I am.
yeah.
I think it's disgusting.
It is very disgusting. We should not be using taxpayers' money to be bombing other nations so they can go to war, and we fund the other nation for bombing that nation too.
And, people don't realize this about the Arab world, but, you do have a large amount of Arab Christians. In fact, even my church, my priest is Lebanese, and his great grandfather was the first priest of our church, and he came to Michigan City from Lebanon, and he was made the priest for our parish by Saint Raphael, who at the time was the the Metropolitan of Brooklyn and East America under the Russian Orthodox Church, uh, under Patriarch Tikhon, and then later under the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia. Um, and Saint Raphael actually consecrated our church in 1911, and he was also Lebanese.
Very interesting.
And and you know, most of our parishioners, most of the original parishioners of St. George in Michigan City, were Lebanese and Syrians. And you know, Syria has a lot of holy places for Christians too. It was on the road to Damascus where Saul of Tarsus fell off his horse and had that vision. Christ asked him, "Why are you persecuting me?" And then he took the name Paul and became one of the greatest apostles. And Syria over on Mount Mula, Mount Musula, or something like I don't know the name exactly. You have a monastery where the relics of Saint Thecla are. Saint Thecla was she was an apostle of Saint Paul, and she was like the first nun, basically.
Yeah. So, speaking of religion, what do you think about the new pope being from Chicago, being the first American pope from Chicago, being elected as the new pope? What do you think about that, Johannes?
Well, I don't care where the Pope is from. I care more about his actions. I used to be Catholic.
Same
I
here.
left the Catholic. I left the Catholic Church because it got too liberal for me.
Same. Very
But
same.
uh, but the problem I have with this Pope is he protected an awful lot of pedophile priests.
Yeah, I remember reporting that on my page. Yep.
In fact, he's probably going to be worse than Pope Francis.
I would say that his beliefs are more moderate than Pope Francis, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm still staying with my church. I just cannot stand the wokeness, and I will gladly take my church because we don't tolerate the wokeness, and we don't tolerate the. I know it's gonna offend some people, so if you're gonna get offended, better log off. But I'm not a big fan of the trans community. Never have, never been. I
I
think
don't like it. I don't like the homosexuals either. And this is what made me leave the
I'm
Catholic
okay
Church.
with the gays, the lesbians. I can't stand the trans. I can't, and that's just my generation. My generation has taken it to a whole nother level. And I'll say this: me and Bob Curran were out getting dinner one evening. I think it was yesterday, and we were out getting something to eat, and we had this he she person serving us our food, and we
He,
were
she, it.
yeah, we had it serving our food, and it came up, asked us what would we like to drink, and me and Bob just looked at each other and just started dying of laughter. And he goes, "Your generation's fucked," and I was like, "Yeah, I agree with that." I couldn't disagree because it's my generation. It's mainly my generation. Changing genders and thinking it's mentally, okay to chop off your genitals and
Well, you got to
change to a different
understand too.
gender.
It's the poison of liberalism that has infiltrated the schools and the colleges. When I went to college, all this crap was just starting. Okay, it wasn't LGBTQ yet. Back then, it was the gay, lesbian, bisexual organization. And okay, I went to IU Northwest because that's where my dad taught, and I got a BA in the fine arts, and of course in the art department. I mean, let's face it, in the art department, you had some students there that were about as queer as a $3 bill.
That in the
Uh,
band department. That in the band
and
department.
it grossed me out. It really grossed me out. And
See,
a
I
lot of
wouldn't
them,
have
of
a
course,
problem with that. As long as someone, my thing was, yes, I guess I'm flattered if another person hit on me, but I just tell them I wasn't interested. I don't roll that way.
Oh, I had a professor that a theater professor.
Yeah, that professor's
He
pretty weird.
really wanted to hit on me. I had to tell him, look, I have a girlfriend. I am not interested. I am not your type. He just would not leave me alone. And when you took a theater class or any performing arts class, and to be a fine arts major, you had to take two performing arts classes. Fortunately for me, we had an exchange student. Well, she wasn't really an exchange student. She was the daughter of one of my dad's colleagues who taught at the University of Paris in France. Her name was Melanie, and she was maybe a couple of years younger than me. Um, so I told her, why don't we go to a theater performance together? She goes, okay. And this theater performance we went to was kind of like a kabuki style, where the audience sat along the outer edges of the stage, and then the performance was done in the center of the stage. And the performance was so bloody morbid. I mean, oh my god, it was just, who the hell would want to watch it? One of the performances was called Marvin's Room, and it was about an old man who was dying, and the whole thing about his grandchildren. And the other one was about an abusive husband to his wife. Who wants to watch that kind of crap? I certainly don't. That's not why I would go. If I want to go to the theater, it's for Shakespeare or something like that. Not that kind of crap.
Oh, talking
Um,
about theaters. Okay, so me and um, me and Mr. Kern, we went to go. He went to go see a scary movie, and I'm all for scary movies. I like thriller movies. Okay, so we went to go see what was it called? The Bloodlines. Oh crap, it'll come to me. But we went to go watch a scary movie. Okay, and so we did that, and we thought the guy at the movie theater was joking with us about talking inside the elevator, and somebody was actually stuck in the elevator, and we just got done watching a scary movie with people getting stuck in the elevators, stuck in the hospitals, dying here and there, right? And like,
uh huh.
so I thought he was just joking. We went down, and in the fire department, Indianapolis Fire Department, you got EMT. They're all rushing inside the building. I'm like, oh my goodness, I could not. I just like, oh hell no. I said, I'll be lucky if I make it home tonight. Nothing happens to me. And then yesterday, in I can't remember. It was in a foreign country. I think it was Venezuela. The same movie was playing, and the whole ceiling collapsed in the movie theater while they were
Oh my
watching that
god.
same movie. I was like, oh, and it went national, and the lady almost died. The first responders were able to get her out of there, out of all the rubble of the ceiling. But it's like, oh my goodness, this movie is like cursed, I guess. But yeah, if you're gonna go see something of the Bloodlines, be careful, cause oh gosh.
Well, me and Scott watched a good movie, and I borrowed the DVD from him yesterday. It was called the Ghosts of the Night, and it's based on a true story.
Okay.
It's about these British who were colonizing Black Africa or Sub-Sahara Africa, and in this one, they were building a railroad bridge
Yeah.
there, and in this one village, these lions would actually attack the people and eat the people.
Oh my goodness.
It's a true story. And there was an American there who helped this British guy hunt these lions. And the skulls of those lions are actually in the Field Museum of Chicago today.
Really?
I never knew that. And as a kid, we would go to the Field Museum all the time. But the exhibits that really stuck in my head at the Field Museum was, I went there when the King Tut exhibit was there back in the 70s. I was fairly small, but the Field Museum also has the huge dinosaur skeletons there. And the one exhibit that always intrigued me, especially when I was in high school, were the shrunken heads from Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
These were like Micronesian tribes. When they were at war with another tribe, they decapitate the prisoners and they shrink their heads and wore them as charms.
Oh, that's
And they
pretty
have those
interesting.
on display at the Field Museum. Now they have some interesting exhibits in that museum.
And you said it's in they have some stuff in Chicago Museum?
It's the Field Museum in Chicago.
Never been there. I'll have to go there one of these days.
Well, they're too big. Well,
You
there are
know,
four big museums. There are
you know,
four big museums in Chicago. You have the Field Museum, the Museum of Science and Industry, the Shed Aquarium, and the Planetarium.
you know what's crazy is Johannes is that I keep wanting to go to Chicago, and then I just hear everything bad of Chicago, and I just don't want to go to Chicago. Chicago is just
Downtown is getting bad.
yeah,
Downtown is getting bad.
yeah. I was told downtown is actually was excuse me, but I was told mixed feelings about downtown. Like, at a certain time, all the police officers will be out there during the nighttime, and so they'll actually protect you. But you just stay away. I think from the south side
Yeah,
of
but the police can only, they've got so much manpower. They're not going to be, they can't be everywhere, you
yeah, and
know.
that's true. And then
And
Chicago's always
and
doing something different, always doing something stupid.
the last time I went to Chicago was just before COVID. I would take my computer to the Apple store. I would go to the Apple store to pick up my iPhone and all that. Uh, and the last few times I went there, there were some real unsavory characters down the Magnificent Mile, down Michigan Street, because the Apple store was on Michigan Street. It used to be right next to the Nike Town. Then they moved closer towards across Michigan Avenue from the Wrigley Building. Um, uh, they built this all glass place right on the Chicago River, and you know there were panhandlers right at the revolving doors going into
Not
the Apple store. They
panhandlers.
wouldn't leave you alone, um, and oh, God forbid you get into. I would cut through the metro station. So Michigan Avenue goes over Lower Wacker Drive, and there's stairs you can go down from Michigan Avenue down to Lower Wacker Drive, and then there's an entrance to the metro station. And oh boy, you better have something to protect yourself because it's dark down there. The lights aren't working properly anymore. Uh, and there's some real unsavory people down there. I mean, I'm like looking all over the place, make sure somebody's not about to mug me. Um,
That's why
and,
I know in Chicago they don't like you. You can actually get charged a felony for carrying a gun if you don't have a license there, if you don't live there. So the
no,
best
I didn't
thing,
have a gun with me, but I had a K-bar self-defense knife that I bought at the Cutco Museum there in
yeah,
Olean,
that's
New
what I'm
York. And
saying.
I
There's
was
other things. You can even have a taser. You can have pepper spray, whatever. But you know how I always see it.
no, even having a taser is a felony. Scott has one.
What? Are you serious?
He used to work at O'Hare Airport, and he
Oh
took the blue line over there.
Oh gosh. Well, you know what? As long as you're carrying concealing, what doesn't hurt, what they don't know, you can't hurt them. Just don't be stupid.
Right.
You know.
Well, a K-bar self-defense knife has a triangular blade on it, and it's designed where somebody grabs you like he's trying to mug you. You just it has a quick release holster. You pull it off your holster, and it's designed where you can jab the mugger's eye out or cut him somewhere. to disable him enough to let you go, and then you run the hell away from him as fast as you can.
Well, Chicago, they don't always find the shooters, so I'll just, carry, conceal, and just shoot the hell out of them and just get the hell out of there.
Yeah, I mean Chicago's not what it was back in the day. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Well,
And then and
it's not.
even in the metro station, you have to go across the train docks in the metro station, go into the main concourse to get to where the South Shore station is.
Yeah.
And even in there, there's some unsafe. There was a guy. I was at the Burger King eating lunch slash dinner,
I can't
waiting for my
stand Burger
train back
King.
to
Burger
Michigan
King
City.
tastes like cardboard to me.
Burger King is not what it used to be either.
Oh no, it's
Um,
not.
it's I won't
Their
even eat
chicken.
there now.
What's it called? Their
The
chicken
Burger King
fries are
that served
decent.
today, I wouldn't even give it to my dog.
Yeah, I wouldn't give it to my dog. Burger King. I don't even like Burger King. Burger King sucks.
Burger King and McDonald's out of the question.
Well,
Uh,
I can tolerate McDonald's, but yeah, I'm not eating at Burger King. Last time I ate at Burger King, I'd say it's 3 years ago when I was in maybe I think it was on the East Coast. I can't remember. I was doing something something on the East side, East Coast, and I think a campaign or whatever. And the team wanted to stop at Burger King, and the smell of the food smelled like cardboard. I just could not deal with Burger King no more. So
yeah, their veggie burger was good,
yeah, I'll
but
give them
then they
credit for
changed
that.
to the Impossible Burger,
The
and I
Impossible
ate
Burger is
that
good.
once. I almost wanted to puke.
Yeah, well, the Impossible Burger is made out of soybean. It's made out of soy. So,
No, it's made out of some kind of GMO. The
oh,
veggie burger was good. During the fast, I would eat that,
oh yeah, the veggie burger. I like the veg. That's one thing I'll give them credit for. Their veggie burgers were actually pretty good. I was surprised by them.
but their Impossible Burger, they did away with the veggie burger and replaced it with the Impossible Burger,
Everyone's doing
and
the
that is
Impossible Burger.
nasty.
Yeah,
That is absolutely nasty.
yeah. So I went to this liberal thing restaurant here in Indy, and oh god, it was just not. No, it was not for me. And they had an Impossible Burger there too that was like for $21, and a
Oh, forget it.
substitute potato. What the hell is a substitute potato? That's what I want to know. I we had to leave. I couldn't stay there. Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Like,
no. But then when I was eating at that Burger King, some guy comes over there and goes, "Yo, give me your food." I'm like,
excuse
"Excuse me?"
me.
Yeah. And he's demanding my food again. So finally, I just told him off in Russian. I told him, "Да пошел отсюда нахуй, пока тебе по башке не ёбну, блядь."
I would have
When
just
I
told
talked
him.
to him, when I cussed him out in Russian like that, he took off.
I would have just told him Impera mi verga.
Oh yeah, vete la verga. Well, pошел нахуй is Russian for vete la verga.
Oh man, you know what? Thank gosh I didn't say it in English. A lot of people would get mad with me. Very mad. Very mad.
Hey, I speak 6 languages fluently, and I can cuss along with the 6 languages I speak fluently. I can cuss in about 45 other languages.
Oh, I
So
know you do, Johannes. I
I'm
remember.
I'm qualified to be an international potty mouth.
Oh, I know. I remember we were working on the Rand Paul campaign down in North. Was it North?
In
Yeah.
Evansville,
Well, yeah, but we also were in Owensboro.
Covington.
Yeah, Covington, Kentucky. And
Well, we had the Airbnb in Evansville, and then we would go down first into Henderson, and then afterwards into Owensboro.
yeah, and I remember that. So like I remember we would be at the Airbnb, and you were just like every day when we got off the campaign from work, you would literally be reading the book of how to speak Indian, and that
Well, I
was
was learning how to do the characters too.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, you studied every day. I remember that every day after we got off the clock, you would spend about 2 to 4 hours just reading that book every day. And you know what's funny is it paid off because now when the scam callers call, you just cuss them out, and that is just beautiful. That is beautiful.
Oh, You should have heard the last
Oh
scammer.
man.
We got these scammers calling our house now.
Are they
They're
using like
pretending.
your area code? Because I have people calling, the scammers calling from like the 812
Yeah,
number that
they
I have,
spoofed the phones. They
Yeah.
spoofed the phones,
Yeah.
and they use some kind of call burning software where they can spoof the phone. And when you call that number back, it's a number that's no longer existent.
Exactly. It's like damn. You know,
But
I I
but
I like I like telling them, I like telling the spam callers, is there a call number where I can call you back later so when you're eating dinner I can disrupt you? They don't like it when I say that.
well, I had this one caller call me the other day. I had this one caller that called me the other day, and uh, he goes, "Hello, my name is Carl. I'm calling about the property you own on 1337 East 35th Avenue in Gary, Indiana." And I'm like, "We don't have any property in Gary, Indiana. We wouldn't want property in Gary, Indiana."
Screw
And
Gary.
so I answer him back in Hindi. मुझे के पास गैरी मकान में मुझे के पास गैरी में मकान नहीं है तुम scammer है mother chode. Then he got so pissed. He goes, "Well, you dirty Indian, Pakistan will own your little bitch ass country, and we will." And then
Oh
he
my
starts cussing,
goodness.
and then he starts cussing me out in Spanish.
Oh hell no.
Ah, it was something else.
Oh, I would have cussed his ass out like no tomorrow.
I
Oh
did,
hell no.
I did. I
Yeah.
basically told him, "Pela me la verga, pendejo."
Oh my goodness. Yeah, he would have got cussed the hell out by me.
But when I found out he was from Pakistan, because this is the thing about India and Pakistan. They practically speak the same language. They practically speak the same language.
Yeah.
They but in India it's Hindi. In Pakistan it's Urdu.
Very
The
interesting.
difference the difference is the difference is the script that they use. Okay?
Yeah.
So Hindi uses the Devanagari script, whereas the Pakistanis use a modified Arab script because Pakistanis are Muslim, and so there's some words that are different. Like Pakistanis will not say Namaste; only Hindus say Namaste. Even the Muslim Hindi speakers won't say Namaste; they'll say Assalam and Assalamu alaikum, something like that. And the Pakistanis say that too. So uh, there's a group of Indians that own Wingstop in Michigan City. They're Muslim Indians. So whenever I greet them, they're like Assalam alaikum, you know. Whereas if it's a Hindu, you can say either Namaste or Ram Ram uh, as a greeting. And 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 Hindi Hindi insults are extremely vulgar, and they have connotations to incest, mainly about each other's sister.
Oh.
Okay, whereas Muslims, uh, you you insult them by calling them uh, a referral to an animal that is unclean to the Muslim faith, which is either a dog or a pig. So you can say tum kuta ki bacha hai or tum meri ki bacha hai, which basically means tum kuta ki bacha hai means you're the child of a dog. Tum meri ki bacha hai means you're the child of a pig.
Jesus.
Because the Muslims see those two animals as unclean, and actually the Muslims from Pakistan come out from Persia, um,
Well,
and
here's what I have to say about that. I feel like the pigs are more cleaner than Muslims.
yeah, yeah, they are. But
Not a big
I don't know
fan of the
where they
Muslims.
I don't know where they come up with that idea. Uh, where the pig is unclean. It's you know
Well, I
they
can
are
understand that pig, is unhealthy, if you eat too much of anything, really. But, I know pig is very fattening, too. But,
well
the Muslims have no room to talk about cleansiness. They don't even know what soap and deodorant is, okay?
so they shit in the streets, as one Armenian would tell me. No, but
Well, and then you have Abu, who don't even, clean up after himself.
oh, tell me about it. When I sharpened his knives, Abu.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
Hold
God,
on,
that
hold
was
on, hold on, hold
disgusting.
on, hold on. Johannes, I want you to tell our viewers about a WIBC radio host that you went to his house and tell us. Elaborate, Johannes. Now, now this is all true. This, yeah, Johannes is not, slandering or defaming. This is all true, right, Johannes?
Right, right.
Okay, so go ahead to tell us about the story about with Abu.
Okay. In 2005, 2000, no, 2014. Okay, I was working the Cutco booth at the Indiana State Fair with a couple of colleagues, and Abu shows up at the booth asking uh, asking whether he can have his knives sharpened. I mean, there were a million customers that came up to our booth asking to get our knives sharpened because Cutco is known for having free and home sharpening. And Abu, he comes up there. I didn't know who he was at the time. I wasn't involved in politics at the time. I what running for public office at the time for me was just uh,
No,
I did
it wasn't even
it was
heard of.
yeah. So so Abu comes up and he talks about how he's this hotshot lawyer in Indianapolis. And me and my colleagues were talking about, boy, this guy's an arrogant bastard. And the one colleague,
Those are
she
some big
basically
souls
ran
out
the
there.
entire Hoosier Fair and Show team. She goes, you can have him if you want. And I'm like, okay. And he lived in Palatine at the time, which is
Yeah,
pretty
not too
much
far from Indy. Yeah, I know where it's at.
that's the west side of Indy Bay. That's where Indy's airport is, I think, right?
Not anymore,
And
but yeah, he lives on the north side of Indy. They don't. All the houses in that neighborhood are a lot better than his. You can tell when you got a nasty, lazy Muslim in your neighborhood.
well, I go to his house to sharpen his knives. They were they were in such bad condition. I had to do a service ticket to send them into the factory. And I had to use the bathroom. That was the most disgusting bathroom I have ever seen. It was so gross. I don't think I even wanted to touch the faucets on the sink to wash my hands
Elaborate,
after.
Johannes. Elaborate. What was so disgusting about the restrooms of Abu's house?
Okay, there was a riser for like a disabled elderly person on that toilet, and it was full of shit. It was
Uh,
gross. It stank in there. Oh, it was nasty. It was absolutely nasty.
Abu just since Abu doesn't have children, he wanted to see what his future children looked like on the riser.
Oh, nasty. Oh my God. He was like,
Oh. Oh yeah, that's our friend Fat Slob Abu is what Whitty calls
and
him.
he only
Fat
bought a
Slob
shears
Abu.
holster, so I made a whole of 10 cents commission going to his house.
Oh wow, 10 cents commission. Wow, he makes Jews look generous.
Oh, he's terrible.
Hot
He was
shot
definitely
lawyer.
tighter
Can't
than
even
bark on a
fucking
tree. That's for sure.
hot shot lawyer. Couldn't even tip you $20 for the gas.
No, especially when it took me 3 hours to get from home to his house. Fortunately, I had another customer not too far away from his place who spent over $1,000 on Cutco for gifts. When
Oh well, that's good.
yeah,
Couldn't rely on Abu for
oh
providing.
hell no,
Oh yeah, he makes Jews look generous. Okay.
yeah, they're bad.
He
He's
makes
bad.
he makes Hamas of the Palestinians look generous.
Hold on a second. Let me mute the microphone for a minute.
Okay. So while he's on mute, but just Abu is just some lazy fat fuck who, we call a chat EBT attorney. He's a copy and paste attorney. Get back here, Johannes.
Yeah, I'm back on.
Awesome. So, but yeah, I was just so, but yeah, it's just, Indianapolis is just full of scammers, potheads, thieves, hobos, sex addicts, you name it, we got everything.
Well,
It's Sin City out here. Sin City
the
out here.
thing is, Gabe, what you got to understand is when people are arrogant like Abu, they really talk big about themselves.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to action, they're nothing.
Exactly. See,
Just like,
see, here's the thing is, some people would call me narcissist, some people would call me arrogant, and I'd say that's probably because of my youth. I do know some things. Don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of things I don't know, and I will tell people that. I'm not gonna sit up here and be a narcissist or an arrogant asshole and act like I know a subject, but I don't. Okay. But yeah, so, and that's what a lot of these attorneys in Indianapolis and from Chicago think they know. They're know-it-alls, and
oh, Chicago lawyers are horrible.
oh yeah, they're like the
Yeah,
equivalent of slip and fall attorneys.
yeah,
Slip and
yeah.
fall attorneys. That's what you call them. Oh, back
Well,
to
we got one like that in LaPorte County. His name is Shaw Friedman.
oh, here we go, Shaw Freeman.
And he would sue NIPSCO multiple times, and he would brag about how it's the gift that keeps on giving.
He is the gift. He's the grifter that keeps on grifting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alexa, do not disturb. Sorry, Alexa. She's going off. I'm doing dumb shit. But so that's one thing I will say. She has a mind of her own. Here, I can do it from my phone. But Johannes, what were you saying?
Well, I mean, uh, I was saying, a lot of these hotshot lawyers, they're going to talk really big about themselves, but then at the end of the day, you can't count on them.
Oh
You
yeah,
can't count on
absolutely.
them, because they're slippery. They're slippery. And then once you don't have the money to pay them anymore, they drop you like a hot potato.
Oh, they always do.
And they get very expensive. I mean, you can go bankrupt uh, paying some of these lawyers sometimes. It's really hard to find a good lawyer.
It is. It
I
is.
mean, there are some out there, don't get me wrong, but
Well, the good attorneys always get screwed no matter what.
no, the good attorneys just don't talk big about themselves. They
Well,
just
that too,
they
but
do their work and they win their cases, but
well, that
they
too. But
they
what I'm saying is the commission always goes after the good attorneys. They never go after the bad attorneys.
they do like
That's
Doug
what's fucked
Bernanke.
up. Yeah. Yeah, they go after a lot of people. And one thing I didn't know, I always talked about, how the commission did Mark Smalls wrong, but I was able to look at his file a little bit more. Apparently, he owes somebody like $7,500. I didn't know that, so yeah. So who knows? I don't know what's gonna happen with that case, but Mark
Well,
Smalls,
One of our Laporte County commissioners owes Shaw Friedman over 40 grand.
who owes him over 40 grand.
One of the Laporte County commissioners.
Well, they better. The commissioners make a decent salary. Plus, they have another job, so you know he should pay up, commissioner. Just gotta say.
Yeah.
It's not like you were arrested and booked in the county jail and missed your, court case like I was. Stupid asshole Ryan Mears. So, oh yeah, that's a good thing is I get to go on June 9th. I get to go tango with the prosecutor for arresting me over a tweet. Dumbest shit ever. So,
Well, when are you going to appeal that? or did that already
Oh
fall
no,
through?
that's we're having a hearing on the ninth about it. Not too much, but yeah, I'm just giving the prosecutor hell because he's a little bitch. Ryan Mears is a bitch. So
Well, you should try and do something to ruin his career.
no, he's running for re-election next year. It won't be that hard. So I ain't gonna
Yeah.
say much because he'll be used against me, but it'll be all
Yep.
right. It'll
Yep.
be all right. So that's the power of the freedom of the press. So that's all I gotta say. You fuck
Yeah.
around, you find out, Ryan Mears.
Damn right.
You know, so you'll get payback. You'll get payback real soon. Not really payback, but you'll get your karma. You'll get your karma. Not payback. Let me correct that. Karma. Very
Well,
good.
it is payback in a way.
What?
It is payback. When I'm telling you, when I get done with my case, I'm going to make sure Michigan City pays me every penny back and
As he
some.
should. Indiana's really, I don't know what's going on, but they like corruption.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm hoping after my Canada trip in November, I'll have enough money to get myself a nice $1,500 Canada Goose coat, and I will wear it in front of everybody just to rub it in their faces.
It's always good to wear something nice, fancy.
And they're nice and warm too. It's like a down coat, but they're not filled with down. They're filled with wolf fur.
Oh, nice. That sounds warm.
Yeah, so it's like very warm. They're like they're not cheap.
How much is it?
They're not cheap coats at all.
How much are they on average?
Well, you want to get a real nice one? They range from 900 to $1,500 Canadian.
Oh, that ain't that bad.
So that would be anywhere from like 600 to 1,000 US.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
they're
That's
like they're like the best. Like they're like the best of the best when it comes to Canadian made products.
oh, okay.
Aside from their maple syrup, just their maple syrup is more affordable.
Well, you know,
And I got a
I
pantry
wish
full of
their
Canadian
Canadian
maple syrup.
I wish their Canadian whiskey was a little bit better.
Well, actually, I like the Crown Royal Black. I don't I
Crown
don't
Royal
drink
will
it.
always be good. I actually did have their what's it called? Their blackberry. Yeah, that was actually really good. Now, the one that's I like to have is during the holidays, like November and December. Sometimes I'll start in October, but is this salted caramel? That is very good to mix drinks up with. It. I
You
brought
brought
some.
that over to my place on Orthodox Christmas.
Wasn't it
That
very
was
sweet?
yeah, it was very good.
It's very good and it's very dangerous for anyone. It'll creep up on you if
Yeah,
you
I
don't.
wouldn't get in the car after you drink that. No way.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really really good. If you leave it in the freezer, oh yeah. I feel like Joe
well,
Hogson
what
might
I
love
like to
those.
use the Crown Royal Black for. Crown Royal Black is a whiskey that's actually aged in a charred oak barrel.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
So it's a very dark whiskey.
Yeah.
And I like to use it when I cure salmon.
Yeah, I remember that. I bought you some for Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, I use it more for cooking than for drinking.
The
And I
peach flavor I wasn't a big fan of. I thought, I still stayed with apple and the peach flavor I didn't really like with that.
I'm not a big thing with fruit flavoring,
I
but
am for some parts. It just really depends. Now, the one whiskey
well, I
that I
like
go
I
to,
like vodka with honey and red pepper in
that
it.
I tried to find. It's very hard to
That'll
find that
keep the
one.
cold away.
That is very hard to find. I don't care who it is, but that's very hard to find down here in
Well, you
Indianapolis.
gotta make it yourself.
You can buy it in the bottle, but it's hard to find, Johannes. The one with the pepper and
Yeah,
the honey.
only specialized liquor stores sell it.
Yeah, I know. Tell me
What
about
I
it.
do is I'll get a I'll get a red hot pepper, and I'll make sure the honey is kind of liquid. So I'll put a funnel in the bottle, pour a little bit of the honey in there, a couple spoonfuls, and put that pepper in there. Put the lid on the bottle, let it sit for a few hours, and boy, let me tell you, you feel a fever coming down. You feel like you're coming down with a cold or a flu. You drink 100 grams of that before you go to bed. The next morning, the next morning, that fever, that cold is gone.
Yeah, I need to start doing that. I didn't know you can make it homemade, so I'll have to start doing that then. But the one in the bottle, that is very hard to find. Now, one thing
It
I
is.
really do like, and I'm like Joe Hogsett for this whiskey is Woodford Reserve. Now they just came out with a double. No, they came out with something a specialty with I think it had to do with double oak or something like that. Now the double oak is very good, but there's a specialty. Now I was told that the new one that just came out recently wasn't so great, but the other one was. So yeah, you're gonna be paying a pretty penny for Woodford Reserve. I know. Just for the double oak barrel is like 60, $70 depending on 60 bucks is the average price for it depending on where you go. But yeah, it's usually about the price for that, and then usually about 32 to 40 bucks for the for the regular kind. But Woodford Reserve's always my go-to.
Well, I'll tell you this thing with Crown Royal Black. Okay, what I do is I get a nice slab of Atlantic salmon. My favorite is the black pearl salmon. That's the best. That's the best to make
That does sound good.
ground lots.
I'm not a
Yeah,
big
black
salmon
pearl
fan, but
salmon.
that one is really good.
Varelasso salmon is good too, but black pearl is like the best. Um, what you do is you take a walled glass tray, line it with uh, plastic wrap, and depending on the weight of the fish, so like you have a piece of salmon that's anywhere from 2 to 3 pounds, half a shot of the Crown Royal Black Whiskey, pour it all over that fish. You rub it into the fish, let it sit for 5 minutes. If you've got like 4 to 5 pounds of salmon, you take you take one second.
It's all right.
Anyway,
It's all right.
anyway, uh, anyway, what you do is after the whiskey sinks into the meat of the salmon, your what I do is I take an ounce and a half of salt of either sea salt or kosher salt, um, preferably the coarse salt. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's an ounce and a half per pound of fish. And then I take a half ounce of granulated sugar per pound of fish. I mix the salt and the sugar together, and I rub it very liberally under the fish
Very
after the
liberally. I
whiskey's
like
been
that.
after the whiskey's been rubbed into the fish. Okay, and the reason why you use the whiskey, okay, the whiskey gets rid of the worms because if you eat fish without cooking it, which essentially cured fish is, it could have worms. So the whiskey kills the worms.
I did not know
But
that. I will remember
yeah,
that.
the whiskey actually kills the worms. And
See,
and
I don't like. I'm not a big fan of sushi, and I had it for the first time. I did like it, but I
oh,
still am not.
I don't do it for sushi. I'll eat it just like that.
Yeah,
Or
I'm still not a fan of. I'm still not. I liked it. I liked some of it. I didn't like all of it. But sushi's all right. But I if somebody invites me to go eat sushi,
well,
I'm gonna
you
say
got to
no.
understand. The raw fish you get with sushi is not raw. It's actually cured.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. But I still am not a big fan of
You
sushi.
can't really eat raw
Yeah,
fish. I mean, some ocean fish you can eat raw, but if it's freshwater fish, if you eat it raw without curing it, you'll get worms.
yeah,
Okay, so basically the salt is the curing agent. The reason why you add the sugar is to counterbalance the salt. Because if you just use salt, it'll be way too salty to eat.
yeah.
So the sugar kind of balances the saltiness. So once you put the salt sugar mix on the fish, you rub it in, you take a little bit of dill weed, drizzle it over the fish, and then you wrap it up with a plastic wrap, put weight on it. I usually put a tray on top of the fish and put some cans, some cans that we have in our pantry in the tray. And the weight actually pushes the salt and the alcohol together into the fish while it cures. Put it in the fridge for about 5 days. And the alcohol, as the curing process goes, the alcohol is going to be neutralized by the salt. So it's not going to get you drunk. Um, then once 5 days goes by, you can actually eat it like that. But what I do is I cold smoke it. So this is not something to do in the summer. You have to do it. You have to do it in like the fall, winter, or spring
Okay.
when the temperature is below 50 degrees or below 55 degrees. Uh, Getting up to 55, 60 degrees, you're pushing the envelope because it'll get too hot in the smoker and then you risk cooking the fish. But cold smoking, smoke is not there to cook the fish. It's there to give it the smoky flavor. So since the Crown Royal Black is aged in in the charred oak barrel, and then you cold smoke it with wood chips from Crown Royal whiskey barrels. Oh, it's just to die for.
I believe
You
it.
have such a good, pungent, smoky flavor to that fish. It is really good.
I believe it. Well, it's about 11:55, so I'd say since we started a little bit late, probably like 10, 15 more minutes. But
Yeah, my dad wants me to do his foot bath with Epsom salt too, so we gotta.
all right. Well, yeah. Is there anything else that we're missing, Johannes? Trump's big, beautiful bill and his feud with Thomas Massey, I'm not too happy about.
Yeah, no, I think he should leave Thomas Massey alone.
I agree. Thomas Massey is a patriot, and he's not a grandstander by any means. He's
And
supposed.
he actually, when he says he's going to do something, he does it.
I
And
know.
he's done a lot of. I think he's probably one of the best congressmen we have.
I agree. If Thomas Massey was in my district, I would vote for him in a heartbeat.
Me too.
He's just one of those good congressmen. He does not cave in, no matter who you are. As you can see, he's voted, to stop reckless spending. He's just one of those, you know, Republicans slash libertarians who believe in the Constitution and believe in the individual of liberties and believes that Americans can make their own choices without the help of the United States government. And God
I
bless
mean,
him.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is pretty good too, but like Thomas Massey.
Yeah, Thomas Massey is like, when it comes to anyone in the House of Representatives, Thomas Massey to me is just one of the far better people. Now, I didn't agree with him with, talking crap and, and just disrespecting Israel. But at the same time, I've come afar, I've learned a lot since the war. And, I agree. We shouldn't be wasting taxpayers' money on bogus wars to fund both sides of the wars. I think it's
Yeah,
awful, and it's un-American, and it's just a complete disrespect to all Americans too. You
Well,
know,
I think, frankly, we should go back to the Monroe Doctrine.
elaborate on that, Johannes.
Well, the Monroe Doctrine basically means we don't deal with anything that's outside the Western Hemisphere.
Mm, I
And
like that.
and you know, um, our military is there to protect us if we're being invaded or if we're being attacked. It's not there to force a regime change in some country that's far away from us. Certainly not one that's a menace to us, or that's not a menace to us. I mean, if a country is a real serious threat to our security, and they're seriously thinking about invading us, okay, I get it. But we can't just be going and dictating to other countries uh, how they need to run their country. It makes us look bad. And I can tell you, as a world traveler, you know, a lot of people, when they see Americans abroad, they get upset because of the things we've done that we
Exactly.
shouldn't have done.
Exactly.
And and they, because I speak all these languages, when I travel, people opened up to me like they wouldn't to anybody else. And of course, I was interested in their culture. So uh, you know that uh, that means a lot to people when you do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's just like okay, you want to come to this country, you need to learn English. English is the language that's spoken in the United States. If I want to do business in Russia, I'm going to be speaking Russian. If I'm going to do business in Georgia, I'm going to be speaking Georgian. If I want to do business in France, I'm going to be speaking French, and so on. You know,
Yeah.
you're going to do business in a country, or if you're going to plan to live in a country, you got to learn that country's language.
Yes, absolutely. Because, I know when Americans go over to Mexico, when you go over to, France, when you go over to any other country, they're going to make fun of you and they're going to bully you and they're not going to help you when you talk in American. That's why you see tourists, months before their trips, they'll learn how to speak, basic, the basic necessities to get by or whatever.
Either that, or if you go to a poor country, okay, they're going to see you there when they see an American, they're going to have dollar signs in their eyes.
Exactly, and they're gonna
I've
be,
seen that too.
yeah. Well, they're also gonna be like an aide. Does that make sense? And some of them actually know how to speak English and will do that for them. Am I correct on that, Johannes?
Yeah, you'll get that. Well, like for example, when I would go to the former Soviet Union, Ukraine was the worst when it came to this. Every time I landed in Kiev, there was a bus that took you from Borispil Airport, which is Kiev's airport. It's not really in Kiev; it's in Borispil, which is a small town just north of Kiev, um, or northeast of Kiev. Okay, uh, there's a bus that would take you from Kiev Borispil Airport to the Kiev train station. Then I would take the train to Poltava, where I was baptized. Um, and and you you look for the bus because the bus cost 10 hryvnia, which at the time was probably like it was 5 hryvnia to the dollar the last time I was in Ukraine.
How
Hryvnia
much
has
is that
since fallen.
How much is that in American dollars?
Well,
American value.
5 hryvnia at the time I was in Ukraine last, 5 hryvnia was $1.
Whoa.
So I'd
pretty
say one
cheap.
hryvnia would be 20 cents. So 10 hryvnia would probably be $2.
Wow.
So the bus basically from the airport to the train station was $2. Not bad for going all the way through Kiev because the train station is like right in the center of Kiev where the Maidan where the Euromaidan was, where the Maidan Revolution took place, the Hreschchatyk, which is Kiev's main boulevard, and the Lavra of the Kiev Caves, which is a big monastery there. The train station's not that far from all those places. Um, Whereas Boryspil, you have to take a road that goes all the way through Kiev, then it goes through the Darnitsia neighborhood in northern Kiev, then it goes northeast until it gets to Boris. And then there's like a fork in the highway. One takes you to the airport, and the other one actually takes you to the city of Boryspil. Um,
Okay.
but 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 as I'm looking for the bus, these taxi drivers, they're up to you. Vam taxi, 20 hryvnia. Oh, taxi, taxi. I only take 20 hryvnia. I only take 40 hryvnia. And they get really annoying. Yeah, and they think you don't speak English, so they're telling that they try to tell me that the bus isn't working and all that sort of stuff. So I'm like, so they're like, давай, давай, taxi, taxi. I'm like, да пошел ты нахуй, пидорас ебаный. Once I start cussing to them like that in Russian, they're like, okay, we can't scam this guy.
That's funny.
That's my friend in Moscow who's a cop. He taught me how to cuss in Russian.
Yeah. One of these days I'd actually like to go to Russia and just explore the culture there.
Oh, it's a very interesting country,
Oh, I know I'm gonna regret going there because it's so freaking cold.
and not all of Russia.
That is true. That is true. But most of Russia is
The
very
northern
colder.
Caucasus is subtropical, especially in Sochi.
I just know if I did go to Russia, I'm going to a cold part and I'm gonna regret it. But you know what? I would have fun there. And that's why they probably drink a
And the
lot
Russian
of
Far East,
vodka.
by the way, is the Russian Far East, which is near the Pacific.
Yeah.
That's actually a very temperate climate.
Now, Johannes, since you have more
Khabarovsk,
knowledge than me,
Vladivostok. I've been to Khabarovsk.
now, Johannes, is that why they drink a lot of vodka? Because if they're so cold up there, they have to keep the alcohol keeps their blood pressure warm.
It's it could be part of it, but vodka, is their national drink.
Okay.
Um, Typically, they drink vodka with pilmeni, and pilmeni is of Siberian origin. It's believed that it came originally from China through Mongolia,
Hmm.
and it was the Mongolian invaders that, you know, like the balalaika is of Mongolian influence. That's why it's got that triangular sound box.
Yeah.
And the balalaika is basically a lute.
I know.
Um,
I know a lot of people know this. In Mexico, the drink is tequila, and that's where the song comes from. Tequila makes your clothes fall off.
yeah, I'm not a big fan of tequila. I've never taken a liking to it.
Tequila, it depends on me. Patron, Jose Cuervo, that's pretty good. I'll always drink that. It depends on the Jose Cuervo too. I'm not drinking the cheap crap. Hey, that ain't happening. But one thing
Well,
you don't want to
with
do.
vodka, you've got real fine vodkas. Uh, like if you want a real good vodka, Kremlyovskaya is the best, but it's also very expensive.
Yeah. Well, the more
Stalichnaya is
you're
good.
paying what
It's
you
known
get
here
for,
as Stoli.
Johannes, in all alcohol, you're paying what you get for, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, But
Now the Ukrainians have a type of vodka they call it horilka.
okay,
Um, but uh, but in Russia, vodka is mainly made from wheat or potato.
yeah,
Ukrainian horilka is mainly wheat, and sometimes vodka can be made from old old bread scraps. They 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 let it ferment and then distill it.
interesting.
Um, a lot of people make their own vodka. It's called samagon, which basically means self ignite.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. That
Um,
sounds like moonshine. You know,
it is
moonshine
moonshine.
too.
It's the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
I've
they
actually
just call it samagon.
I actually tried some moonshine, homemade moonshine down in Kentucky, and it was in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I'll never forget. That was the most strongest crap I ever drank, and
It is very strong.
I will never forget. It was the equivalent to drinking gasoline. Okay, and what's crazy is he even did it cherry flavor, and I was still on. That shit was strong. I mean, that was very strong.
But my godson's father makes his own samagon.
You ever had? Okay, so I did try this. There was a guy that's in Bowling Green on the
You
outskirts
got
of
to be
Bowling Green.
careful with that though, because you do it wrong, it becomes methanol alcohol, and that can make you go blind.
Oh, exactly. So there was this guy um, that he made, and it was very, very good. A lot of people would buy it from him, and he would only make it seasonal. It was pumpkin pie moonshine, and that was very, very good. And he made two different levels. One was the strong level, and then one was the medium level. But me on the other hand, I felt like the medium was pretty strong too. But you could notice a big difference between the strong level and the medium because there were housewives that wanted this pumpkin pie moonshine. And it is the
Oh
best
wow!
stuff ever. And I mean, people would buy it in crates, okay? Buy it in crates. Now, I don't know. I think it's still like federal law that selling moonshine is still illegal. So that's why I'm not going to say his name. I don't know if it still is or not. I think you have to be a brewery, am I correct on that, Johannes?
I don't know really what it is. I mean,
I know
I
that
think it goes by quantity.
it does, yeah, and I know you can make your own beers at home too. And so, like, yeah, I know a former state legislator who actually makes beer at his house here in Indiana.
Well, I've made homemade wine.
Yeah,
I learned how to do that in Ukraine.
yeah,
It's pretty strong stuff. Um,
yeah,
Making wine is a lot easier than making moonshine.
and beer.
Well, I've never made beer, but
That's something I would like to. I'd like to make beer.
I'm not a
That way,
big beer drinker. Beer makes actually Beer actually makes me more tipsy than vodka.
huh? Well, beer also sits heavier than vodka.
It is. Yeah, I'm not a big beer fan.
You know what? If you drink the whiskey bourbon beer,
But I'm not
that's
really a
really
big
good.
heavy drinker anyway.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, I know that, Johannes. You hardly ever drink.
I mean, I'll have some shots of vodka with friends, on a feast day, on a
Yeah,
special occasion, but
I remember
I
me
can
and
go
you on the
like
holidays.
months without it.
I feel like it was me and Jason that drank more. You would have maybe a couple shots, and that was all.
Yeah, well, Jason doesn't drink, period.
Oh yeah, Jason doesn't drink. I forgot about that. Yeah, yeah. Who was it that
Yeah.
was with us last time?
Well, Stevan will have some.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you very, very rarely ever drink, anyways. So
Well,
that's
on
why it was
Orthodox
shocking me.
Pentecost last year, Stevan was here, and he brought a bottle of Slivovica, which is a Serbian hard liquor made from plum. And
I've never
I
heard that.
fixed
That's the first time
Chevap.
I'm hearing about that.
I fixed Chev up. So we were sitting outside, and we had a few shots of Slivovica, but my limit's like 3 shots, and then that's it. I'm done.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so. Well, it is about 12:13, Johannes. Do you have any? We're going to wrap it up now, but do you have anything else you want to talk about briefly?
No, I'd say that's about it. I wish our guest would have shown up.
It happens, you know. So
Yeah.
we'll have somebody on next Sunday. I know that for sure. You know, but yeah, maybe he might. I don't know. We'll see. But sometimes when you're gonna leak stuff out, against any type of government commission, it takes a lot of courage to do that, and sometimes it takes some second guessing. I know that for sure. Been through
Well, I'll
that
tell
too.
you,
So.
you expose certain people in the government, you become a marked man. As you probably know that better than I do.
Oh yeah, especially when you especially when you expose a judge. Oh God,
Oh yeah.
heavens forbid that they add that on your frickin' sentencing. Jesus, these people are nuts. But okay, well,
But
like
the corruption's got to be exposed. I mean,
it
this
does.
can't go on.
It does. And so if you want to follow corruption or, advice on how to make vodka or, anything happening with, foreign governments, foreign policies, national politics, local politics, follow Hoosier Enquirer on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and X. You can also follow us on our website, HoosierEnquirer.com, for the latest news happening around the state of Indiana. Johannes, thank you for coming on every Sunday as a co host. And our last show will be June 8th. June 8th is our last show because there's Father's Day. And then I'm on a sabbatical adventure after that. We'll call it that. So, well, stay tuned. Follow us next Sunday. And our last show will be June 8th, and then and then we'll and then you get to celebrate Father's Day. So, stay in
Yep.
touch. Follow us. Also follow us on YouTube for our live videos. And other than that, peace out.